welcome to Marvel Champions podcast about Marvel Champions, the card game. I am your host, Scott, and with me as always, my co-host, Ryan.
All right, it has been a while since we've done our last champion checkup, so why don't we do another one, Scott?
Yeah, we've got some breaks in between some characters coming out, so we thought we'd revisit some old heroes.
That's right.
I think about it, Ryan, we've been through the core box, and I think Wave started through most of Wave 1.
Yep, that's right. There was only one villain that we haven't done from the core box / Wave 1, and there was only one hero, so we actually kind of had to dig into the second wave of heroes.
And who did you play?
I played as the Ant-Man.
Oh, that's right. You were the Ant-Man.
Yes,
and I played as one of your favorite characters in this game, Miss Marvel.
Yes. As part of our champion checkup, we're trying to do heroes that we traditionally don't do. So my opinion of Miss Marvel is always going to be positive. So we're giving you a shot to see how you like Miss Marvel.
Yeah, and we'll hear my thoughts. But Ryan, tell the wonderful people out there who the villain was and how we set that up.
The villain was everyone's favorite quick game beat up, Rhino.
Mr. Rhinoceros.
That's right. And just kind of reminding some people that haven't maybe listened to our champion checkups in a while, we like to take some of the older villains with some of the older heroes and apply the newer cards to them just to see if they've gotten better, worse, probably not worse, and just see how it's changed and how they hold up. So with Rhino, we doesn't really have a lot of variety to him other than one encounter set. We threw in the Iron Spider Sinister Six encounter set.
So we went with more of a Spider-Man theme on the villains, but not a Spider-Man hero, Ryan.
That's right. Well, at least we had some type of thematic stuff going on. So, but unless you do, my kids love watching the Spidey Friends show on Disney that has Spider-Man, Spin, and Ghosty. Rhino.
Is that what their names are?
Yeah, I think that's how they have it. The Miles, the Gwen, the Peter. And Rhino is one of the common villains, and guest appearances sometimes is Miss Marvel and Ant-Man.
Oh, how fitting.
Yeah, so there you go.
All right, Ryan, I think we should talk about the villain first.
Okay. I think that's pretty solid.
Have to spend too much time. I think maybe the little bit of extra stuff is maybe around Iron Spider's gang.
Yes. So how was it going back to Rhino? Because I feel like Rhino is a common villain because he's quick to set up and he's kind of like the baseline villain for like most people, especially if they're like testing decks and stuff.
I would agree with you. I think because most people probably played him a ton of times, that they kind of know what you're looking for with Rhino, what to kind of anticipate, how to kind of game the game a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, we kind of knew a strategy going in, and it's typically tried and true, so we didn't really have to worry about too much.
Yeah, that's very true. He, I would say in first player, he is, or like true solo, he is commonly seen as overall an easy villain, except for he will randomly scheme out and you just lose.
Yeah, that's one of the things with Rhino is his scheme value is, I think, always 1.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of can have a little bit of a reprieve just to flip down and let him scheme. And
yeah.
Generally speaking, you're not going to advance in the game.
Yeah. Many times has advance, the standard encounter set card, ruined Rhino games.
But it does happen.
But I do feel that he becomes easier in multiplayer because that threat obviously gets bigger, and he just doesn't. He can't keep up with his own threat, kind of thing. So
Right.
as long as you have a decent amount of thwarting going on, it's never really an issue for Rhino.
Yeah. There was no real, like, wild, oh yeah, that card for me with this Rhino game.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, we play him so much that you just kind of know all of his cards.
Yeah. So, what do you think of Iron Spider and his crew? How'd that go?
I'm trying to think of what they do. We've got like a win defeated, force response. I want to say for me, the one that came out a few times was Electro. And her little gimmick there is for each lightning resource attached to her, she gets +1 hit points. So after she engages you or activates, you choose one card from your hand that has a printed lightning resource energy type, and you attach it to her. And she stole cards from you and I think me, so
Yeah, she did steal.
Yeah. We had Sandman out. He did his force response, I think at least once. His whole thing is after Sandman takes any amount of damage from an attack, discard the top 7 cards of the encounter deck.
Now, quick question. Because we did have... So there's the Sandman in the Iron Spider Sinister Six, but I believe that Rhino also has a Sandman minion.
That is true. Yep.
And I can't remember. Did we need to take any of those out, or it just you can keep them in? They just can't both be out at the same time.
Right. They can exist in the same deck, even though they're unique for the villain. They just can't be in play at the same time. Because I want to say the Marauders. Oh, I guess they're not technically in the encounter deck.
Yeah, the Marauders doesn't work the same.
Well, I mean, you've got a duplicate of every single villain, but they're not. They're kept their own little individual pile. So I guess technically, we should have taken the Sandman from Iron Spider out, maybe. But it never came out at the same time, so
yeah,
I'm gonna say just don't tell the FFG police.
Yeah, that's a good call. Let's see. Someone else. Did we see Spot? I can't remember.
Yeah, he came out. I think twice. His biggest thing is when you defeat him. If you don't, no, if he was defeated with excess damage. Well, sorry, without excess damage, you have to shuffle him into the encounter deck.
Yeah, so you gotta give him more than he's worth. We did see Bombshell at one point. And so she's a 2 scheme, 3 attack, 4 health minion. And I guess she divides the damage among each character equally. Thankfully, we were able to deal with I can't remember if we killed her or dealt with the scenario before she actually attacked. But I thought it's a unique ability for a minion to have. That's not like your traditional, like, oh, this is just an indirect, or oh, this is just 3 attack. I like how it spreads it all out.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think the other thing with this set is it's all about the criminal keyword or trait. And I think Rhino's people are criminal, if I remember right.
Yep, the Sandman and his has criminal, as well as Shocker has criminal.
Yeah, so it kind of played into their side scheme too.
Yep, Shocker came out because what was the thing that was said something about? Was it the side scheme that had the criminal? Oh no, it was the environment that we had. Right. Surge in crime. Yeah, each criminal minion gains surge, and I think we got like Shocker, so he gained surge.
Yeah, and you can't get rid of that until you have no criminal minions in front of you, so... Yeah,
Yep.
I
That
think
wa
it's
it
a
was
good
a
set.
yeah, it was a fun set that went with the villain, and I think it made him quote harder without really it making him harder. But I think it was good to just change it up a little bit and make him a little bit more fun.
And I agree with you. Rhino is your stereotypical race to the finish as fast as you can, right?
Mm-hmm.
You typically aren't worried too much about threat. It's more damage, damage, damage. And a good little minion set like this kind of causes you to have to take some of that damage and
Yep.
place it other places.
Mm-hmm.
We did we see Hobgoblin? Did he just come out and die?
I cannot remember if we actually saw him do anything. I see. I'm trying to remember. He never attacked. I know that. So if he did come out, we killed him fairly quickly.
Yeah. Anything else with the Rhino or the Iron Spider Sinister Six, right?
I don't have too much other than yeah, Rhino's still just a solid villain. I mean, he's not a fancy one, but he's still fun to go back to. It's a quick game, like I said, very quick setup. There's no special rules you have to remember. He's just very straightforward, and throw in new encounter sets just to change it up a little bit. I think it's a good way to maybe test encounter sets if you're kind of concerned if an encounter set's going to be like too hard. Maybe you can throw them in Rhino and see how it goes, and that might be an easy way to do that.
So my last question for Rhino Ryan to you would be: do you still feel like Rhino's that go-to villain to teach somebody, or do you think there's a different villain you would use now?
I think that kind of goes back to something we've talked about in the past, where it's kind of, if you're teaching someone, you probably want to get them invested. So you probably want to pick a villain that they know and like. If they know Rhino and they're like, yeah, that sounds fine, then I would probably do Rhino. But if they were big into X-Men villains, then I would probably still kind of lean towards their interests rather than like a particular villain's skill level.
Okay. I like it. Good job, Ryan.
Was that the right answer?
It's an answer.
All right. An answer is the right answer. So let's talk about these heroes. Miss Marvel, you don't play her very often, and I kind of gave you a deck idea to try to hopefully sway you to the side of the Marvelites. Marvelites. Miss Marvelites. I don't know.
So when Miss Marvel came out, or when I got her with Captain America. So relatively. So kind of, it was almost like a campaign box hero experience for you and I. I took Captain America. You were more a little Miss Marvel. She was a little more unique with being the random champion in that first wave.
Yeah.
And so you played her. I focused on Captain America, and I played her a few times in the past, but just couldn't. Early on in the game, I put a lot of value in basic actions. So whenever, her stats are complete garbage, and you're like, oh, I don't want to exhaust her to do her ability. That's a waste of a turn. So I didn't find much value in her, but having kind of grown as a player and understanding her potential value, I've definitely seen how she is definitely a well-loved and high-powered hero. And the deck that you suggested was to play off of, it was an aggression deck, off of Hone Technique and the card No Quarter. So I packed her full of red event cards, attack cards, and just made huge, giant attacks that I could pretty much overkill without actual overkill, just excess damage, and discard like 4 to 7 cards. That's what it felt like. And typically I get hit at least about 50% of those. That was kind of the fun thing. And then I'd have this pretty much another full hand to go do something else. And then she's got like her and Biggin, which made those get bigger. The Hone Technique enhanced those. What was the other thing? Oh, her card draw is pretty good. I did her personas that she gets. But ironically, like what probably most people think is her stronger one. What is it? Is it Nadia? No, what is it? Nakia?
I believe it is Nakia.
Okay, so that's the one I think most people like. But then I was using Bruno and the other one a lot more.
Amir.
Yeah, Amir, that's right. Amir and Bruno. And yeah, it worked out pretty good. Got a good little combo setup. I used Arctic Fox and Digging Deep because her alter ego side ability lets you mill until you find one of her cards. And I was probably about 50% on doing the ability first instead of Amir or vice versa. And there was a couple times where it was like a massive failure. Like I would draw into Arctic Fox because she was on top. And I was like, no, I should have done my ability first.
Yeah.
Or it would be like a Digging Deep. I'm like, darn it. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. She's nice with wiggle room. She didn't take a lot of damage. Her thwart is decent. She is more well-rounded than I had remembered. Yeah, overall, fun deck. I had a lot of fun playing her. I see why a lot of people like her.
Yeah, when I first saw her as a hero, that was kind of the same thought I had was like her stat line's 1-1-1. Like how can she be that good? You know, that same concept of this was early game, basic powers were king. But yeah, once I played her that first time and figured out like, oh, this is how she works, I've loved it because I like deck building and you can do fun decks with her and she can become very powerful, especially with those attack and thwart boosters with Embiggen and Shrink. So I've always enjoyed Miss Marvel and I'm glad you had fun. I love the no quarters deck. Like that combo with aggression's one of the best ones, I think, in all the aspects. It's just so fun to just destroy with those combos, and with her having that Embiggen, it just makes it so much more powerful and you can draw so many cards.
See, that was the other thing, like which was fun about this deck is if you take a card like No Quarter on its face value, you're like, oh, I probably will get to discard 1, maybe 2 cards if I'm attacking like a minion with 1 health left or something. But if you play it right and you make that little combo happen, you can, like you said, you can draw tons of cards and you just kind of stack your deck with red cards.
Yeah.
What was the other 2? I played 2 other my main 2 attack cards. It was Piercing Strike, and what was the other one? It has Black Panther on it. That if they're stunned and confused, you get to draw a card. Yeah, that one. Because you can Embiggen and Hone Technique those 2, and it turns these like super low cost 1-2 cost cards into like swinging web kicks in essence. It's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, because you're thinking Embiggen's adding 2, and then whatever the cost of that card because of Hone Technique. So Piercing Strikes, 3 damage. Now you add 2 with Embiggen, so now it's 5. And it costs 2, so now it's 7 damage. That's piercing for 2 cost.
Yeah, and we definitely use that with Rhino. He kept getting his tough status card, so.
Yep. So yeah, it was man, that combo with her, she is just so powerful with that. And that's one thing I really hope that they are able to do is a Hone Technique type card for the other aspects. It doesn't have to be the same, but I want something like that because it's just such a fun card that makes a lot of heroes more fun.
Yeah, that would be. You would think it'd be pretty easy, right? If you did it for justice and protection, if you paid with a lightning for like a defensive event, it would add 1 to whatever the value of it is. Or if you You
I don't
had
know.
Justice with Thwart, right? You played with a mental resource. It would put the value. Oh, I guess it would be an aggression, because isn't the aggression, isn't Hone Technique a mental?
Yes.
So I guess you would have to kind of get a little wonky with those.
Yeah, you just like like a circle.
Yeah.
Physical.
You do physical protection and lightning for Justice.
Yeah, something like that. So, I mean, it doesn't have to be like an exact copy, but it would be great to see cards like that. Home Technique just opened up a lot of options for cards that may have not gotten played very often. Like I never played Press the Advantage very often because it just wasn't a whole lot of damage, and it just never really saw use in my decks as much as I think I wanted. But as soon as Home Technique came out, all of a sudden just made it just enough better to be more worth it, and stuff like that.
I guess my last thought on Miss Marvel was that her ability to enhance a card's output is a really powerful concept,
Mm-hmm.
because you can apply it universally to any, in this case, they're thwart and attack cards, so you are kind of limited to that. But there are so many of it. That's the bread and butter of the game.
Yeah, she's really powerful, and she's fun. I feel like she's a little simple in some ways, but once you kind of get her supports in, going, her personas, and whatever deck you kind of pair her with, she can be complicated in trying to figure out. All right, I need to do this first, and then this, so that I could do this to do that, and but she's great. She's such a strong hero. I don't know if I would recommend her for a first timer, but fun.
Yep, I would agree. All right, Ryan, why don't you tell us about Ant-Man?
Ant-Man. So you're a big fan of Ant-Man, and
Mm-hmm.
because you liked Ant-Man so much, it kind of just naturally means I became the Wasp. So
Yep.
I didn't play Ant-Man as much. So it was good to play him and realize, yeah, Ant-Man's a fun hero to play. I mean, he was the first flip hero, and he did it right. You flipped often with this card, especially with like his resize, and it just felt good to be able to switch back and forth and make things work. He's so fun. I played him with a Justice deck because I knew you were playing aggression, so I wanted to make sure to balance us a little bit, and he worked just fine in Justice. I didn't make it a fancy super deck or anything, just threw some Thwart in there just to control things, and it worked out pretty good. Some cards that kind of stood out to me in this round. First off, I got Ant-Man's helmet on my opening draw, which is like a huge win. So I got that down immediately, and that is the bread and butter of Ant-Man. If you have Ant-Man's helmet out, you're ready. You can do whatever you want.
See, and that card is so versatile because it gives you card draw and healing,
Oh man.
which is like the two of the best things a hero can do.
Yep. It just it makes you enjoy his gimmick of flipping, and it really makes him. You have to start planning even more, especially when you like team it up with Pim particles. Like I want to flip to giant hero, but then I'll do double little healing and stuff like that, and you really kind of just plan around it. And it was really fun playing him and deciding what I needed to do, because at the early game I was in tiny form a lot trying to draw cards, but later in the game I started shifting a little bit more to giant as I was trying to push for damage and also healing so I can stay ready, didn't have to defend. So it was a good shift throughout the game of what size I needed to be.
I think one of my favorite turns that I saw you play was when you had both your resizes in your hand.
Mm-hmm.
That always makes for a fun, because you should be able to draw 3 to 4 cards, plus heal, plus do the responses from each of your flips.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I love that turn. It just is very thematic to me.
Yeah. That's the best way of saying it. It's thematic. You feel like Ant-Man of getting small, punching a guy in the stomach, getting normal size, kicking, and then getting big size for the final escape kind of thing. Like just that shift it feels like you're Ant-Man. One card that I try to play, but it doesn't always work, but it worked a couple times, was Wrist Gauntlets. It's only a 1 cost, and by spending either double resource, or sorry, a double physical resource or a double energy. Is it? Yeah, it's energy, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Energy. Yep.
Energy. You can either stun or confuse, and I use the confuse most often in our case. But it's a really powerful card to basically say, yeah, I think I'm just gonna stun you now or confuse you. As long as you have those resources, you're good to go.
Did you find that you were sometimes in the wrong form when you needed the opposite form? With Riz Gauntlet specifically?
I think there was at least one time where I was like, I need to be in this. I think part of it was just also the circumstance. But yeah, there was a time where I was kind of like, I need to be in the right form.
All right, I have one other question. Were you really ticked off when you had to pick up Cassie from school?
At that moment, I was not too bad because I just let Cassie get in the car and I drove her back, turned on some TV, gave her a pizza, and moved on.
Okay.
Got to discard it, or not discard it, but remove it from the game.
All right, I have 2 more questions about Ant-Man for you, Ryan.
Okay.
What's your hot take on Hive Mind?
A great one. I think Hive Mind is an okay card, but I'm not a big fan of it. Does that make sense? Not at all.
Okay.
I hate that there's only 1 copy, and I wish there was more. And I'd rather it be 3 threat, because if you don't have those ants out, it's a terrible card.
Terrible card. So
Yeah.
my question is, if it was 3, do you think the fix is remove 1 giant strength and replace it with a Hive Mind, where you would only have 1 giant strength?
That's a great question. Yay! See, let me think about it.
Your other option would be to remove the giant stomp, because we've seen some heroes recently where their big attack is they only have 1 copy of their really big attack.
He's got 2.
Yeah.
But
he doesn't have any other attack cards.
True. I like his giant stomp. I think I like it at 2. I think that's good. I like resize at 2. I would love to have a third one, but I think it might be a little too much. Pin particles at 2. I think that works. Army of Ants, I love having 3 of them. They're great to get around, like retaliate. Helmet, there's only 1. Wrist Gauntlet's only 1. So giant strength is probably really the only flexible one, and I think I would take one of those and give it to Hive Mind. I'd either lower Hive Mind to 1 cost or raise the threat to remove 3 on a standard. Granted, if you have all 6 or all 3 Army of Ants, that's 6 threat for 2 cost.
2 for 6, right?
But I feel like the penalties of having to get the Army of Ants out and also having to be in tiny kind of balances that power level. kind of the same thing of Cable. Cable has some of the strongest like attack card. Where however many victory side schemes are in the victory, it adds to it, and it can be an insane amount, but it's not an insane amount at the beginning. It slowly builds, and I think this is the same way. It can slowly build to the point where you're removing a hecaton of thwart.
And he doesn't really have a way to tutor it back easily either, so it's not like you can really cheat the system in that way.
Correct. Yeah. So I think that's what I would have done if we were able to go back to it. But overall, even with the one thwart, he does thwart pretty good, especially when he's flipping down too tiny. He gets to remove a threat. So I think that might be part of the decision why they went the route they did. But still, I think he's great. I think he's an all-round hero. He's got card draw, he's got healing, he's got stun and confuse, he's got ways around retaliate. He can kind of do it all.
You took the word right out of my mouth, Ryan. I was like, he is one of the best characters to plan your turn around what you need to do that turn. It's like, I need to flip down and be in tiny form so I can remove some threat. And then, or do I need to flip up and be, Ant-Man giant form and just do a bunch of punching?
Yep. He's definitely one that if you're collecting the game right now, listener, Ant-Man's one of the heroes you should get. I think he's a good experience with the flipping. These are great cards. He's got some pretty good leadership cards that come in his pack. So yeah, he was a win for me.
Yeah, he's got a couple of those when you change form.
Yeah, he had Moxie, and then I think he had those
lay down the
law. Yeah.
I do have one other question for you, Ryan. Or he does come with a card called Call for Aid. Not to spoil anything, but I think you'll be, me or you will be talking about that card in a upcoming episode.
Most likely, because it's a fun deck. Hint, hint. Around that card. Wait, haven't we already talked about it? I think I mentioned it in a previous episode.
Yeah, but I don't think you went into
details.
Full details. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some pretty good. He's got some pretty good minions. Stinger's one, I think, for a long time, was ran in a ton of decks because she's cheap.
Allies, yeah.
And Ant-Man, Hank Pym. Is that Hank Pym? Ant-Man, is that the sub? Yeah, it's Hank Pym.
Yeah.
He's pretty good ally. A couple of good upgrades in this kit too. So,
one card that's in here, and maybe this is the first time it's come up, maybe not. I don't know. But a card that I don't see a lot of people ever really talk about it, and I don't really see it in a lot of decks, but I have enjoyed putting in a lot of decks.
Muster Courage.
Is not Muster Courage, but Assess the Situation.
Mm-mm.
I'm a big fan of this card. It's a basic, because I'm assuming people listening to this probably doesn't have the card in front of them. It's a basic event, Assess Situation, 0 cost action. You get +1 hand size until the end of the phase.
Yep.
So,
and for sequencing, you draw cards, and then the phase ends. So
great. So it's fun to get that bonus. It's just basically I'm exchanging this card for later on, but it works. I think it can be a really helpful card for some heroes. I've used it with Hulk, and that's helped with some of his hand size problems. So
he just has tiny hands.
Yeah, you can play it in Alter Ego or in Hero. I'm just a big fan of it. All right, Scott. So overall, good experience?
Yeah, fun game. I would definitely play that Miss Marvel deck again. I think she could hold her own.
Yeah, I loved playing Ant-Man. I think I want to revisit him again and play some different aspects. And of course, I'll play Rhino again. I mean, he's Rhino. Everyone plays him.
Yeah, I played him this past weekend. So
Oh, with the new hero, I'm guessing.
yeah, with a new hero.
Fun. Yeah, go out and play, y'all.
Yeah. Well, we want to know if you've revisited any heroes lately. What's been your experience? What's been your takeaway? Your aha moment of making that hero work? Or a new potential idea that you thought about as you revisited? We would love to hear that. You can reach out to us at marvelchampionspod@gmail.com. We'd be happy to hear from you. And we appreciate everybody listening. And as always, if you want to go from a chump to a champ, listen to the Marvel Champions podcast. Thanks.
Go back to those old heroes. They're good.
Yeah, we kind of went a little Iron Man themed, but didn't have an Iron Man hero.
What do you mean by Iron Man thing?
Well, I mean Iron Man. Jeez, I meant Spider-Man.
There you go.
I'll have to cut that one.
Oh, we're keeping that one in. You finally get to mess up,
3,
and I get to
2, 1.